If you want to improve the most important shot in tennis after your serve, then you're in the right place. As in this video, I'm going to be breaking down 4 of my followers' return of serves and condensing them into 3 simple tips that can help you to improve yours. But first, let me introduce you to the new sponsor of fixing my followers. Welcome, SwingVision. Now, I know lots of you already use SwingVision, but to be honest, I'm a little bit more new to it and I've been using it within my coaching program for the last few weeks, and honestly, it's a game changer. The players that have submitted their videos for this video have all filmed their videos using SwingVision. You'll notice in the top left of the screen is the score, and in the top right of the screen is a heat map of where their shots have landed and what shot type they've hit. As well as that, I have access to all of their match stats, things like serve percentages, return percentages, average rally lengths, where they've hit their shots to and where they've hit their shots from, giving me a much deeper insight and helping these videos to be much better. Now, if you haven't heard of SwingVision before, it's simply an app on your smartphone that you can use to record footage of your training sessions or matches. But within that footage, it collects loads of data. It tracks where every single one of your shots lands along with the shot speed. And what I love most about this app, especially as a coach, is at the end of your hour or 2-hour session, it condenses your footage down by cutting out all of the dead parts, leaving only the points. And if you want to take that a step further, it even selects a highlight reel of your best points. You can filter the footage down to select only certain shots, or even select points that are a certain rally length. You guys already know what I feel about how video can help you and your tennis. And so if you're serious about developing your tennis, SwingVision is definitely an app that you should consider looking into. Now, you can get a free version of this app, and there is a pro version which you can pay for, which gives you a lot more features. But SwingVision have been super kind, allowing all of my legendary viewers, you, to get a free swing stick worth $100 if you sign up to SwingVision Pro. And so I'll put all the links to that in the description below. But now, let's get into fixing my followers' returns. So first up, we're going to take a look at Michael's return of serve. Now, when you look at him, you'll see that he's pretty athletic and got a pretty decent serve as well. And so if he could improve the quality of his return of serve, he could win a lot more matches. Now, when it comes to Michael's stats, you'll notice that he's actually making quite a lot of his returns, but the problem is they're just not effective. Quite often, they're pretty slow and landing pretty short, even when he's returning his opponent's weaker second serves. Now, what you'll notice when Michael's returning is his court position is quite far inside the baseline. Now, this is a good move when you're playing a player who's got a weaker serve. Normally on their second serve, you might creep into the court. But the problem with Michael's return is he often gets himself jammed up. You'll see that because he finds his contact point quite close to his body, and sometimes he's even having to move backwards to make his return. Ideally, when we're hitting a return, whether we're returning a big first serve or a slower second serve, is we want our body weight going forwards as we strike the ball. And so giving yourself more room behind that return is going to help that massively. Now, this is relevant for all levels of tennis player, whether you're more or less experienced than Michael is. And a simple tip that can help you to create better spacing, allowing you to get better body weight transfer going forwards, is to start your position roughly 2 big steps behind where you anticipate your contact point being. Now, if you're playing a brand new opponent that you've never played with before, you may not know this straight away. This is where looking at their serve during the warm-up can help you. But once you've got a feel for where you're making contact with the ball on your return of serve, start 2 steps further back from that position. This gives me enough space to make a step forwards as they toss the ball up, to make my split step as they contact the ball, and make another step forwards to meet the ball. Now, the challenge that Michael faces is such a common one, which leads us on to our next player, Brennan. But we will come back to Michael later. Now, you'll actually see that Brennan starts further back than Michael did, giving himself more space to move on to the oncoming ball, which he does brilliantly. However, he still has the problem where he gets himself jammed up or having to move laterally out to the ball instead of forwards to the ball. And so as I mentioned before, he could do with standing a little bit further back. Where Michael was standing in roughly where he was going to meet the ball, Brennan was making one step back, giving himself enough space to step in as his opponent tossed the ball. However, after his split step, he wasn't able to make another move forwards. He was having to go out to the side or getting himself jammed up. Rather than Brennan's position being just one step behind his contact, he could have done with making an extra one. Because it just goes to show when Brennan did have that extra space, when that serve came in slightly shorter, when he had more momentum going into the shot, not only were his shots faster, but they were deeper and more directed. Now, believe it or not, our third player, Wen, also had a similar issue on his return of serve. Now, Wen is a slightly more experienced player. As you can see, he is starting further back and using great momentum to lead up to his split step, but he often got stuck in this split step position. And so as you can see, these are three different players with three different game styles and at three slightly different standards, but they could all benefit from starting further back than they currently do to give them room to step in, make their split step, and then move on to the oncoming ball. I actually made a video on this a while back. A visual cue that I like to use is to think of a Y-shaped pattern. If I expect to make contact with the ball here, I'm going to make my two big steps backwards. From this start position, as my opponent tosses the ball up, I'm going to make a move forwards. Now, this move forwards could be small steps, or it could be one big step. Either way, I need to step in to make my split step as my opponent contacts the ball. Once I make my split step, I've then got extra room to continue my momentum forwards, either this way or this way, making that Y-shaped pattern that I mentioned. Now, Michael was standing right at the front of this Y. Brennan was standing in the middle of it, and Wen had a slightly better position but was getting stuck in the middle of this Y, meaning that he had no momentum going forwards. He was only able to move out to the ball. Having body weight transfer going forwards onto your return of serve is going to massively increase the quality of the ball that you strike, giving you more speed, more depth, and better control of direction. As you can see, all three of these players are pretty athletic, and just by starting the point more effectively, they're going to transform their results. Now, the point I made about Wen getting stuck in the split step position is relevant for our next tip, as we're going to be talking specifically about the split step. Here we're going to take another look at Michael and our fourth player, Don. Now, when it comes to the split step, the ideal timing is that you should be in the air as your opponent makes contact with the ball. This means that by the time you've landed, you're already ready to push off in the direction of where you need to go. However, you'll notice that Michael does this a little bit late. He actually makes his jump after the ball has been struck by his opponent, causing him to be late to the next ball. Now, most often he gets away with it as he's so athletic, but this does mean that he's being more defensive with his returns than he could be. I honestly think that he could be attacking lots of these returns if he made his split step slightly earlier. Now, there are two main reasons why players split step slightly late. Number one is anticipation, and number two is feeling like you've got too much time if your opponent is serving slowly. And they're kind of linked, as most players, when I ask them to try to split step at their opponent's contact point, they feel like they make their split step and they've got too much time for the ball. They feel like they're waiting. However, if you ever feel like you've got too much time in tennis, you need to use that time to move to the ball. It's your opportunity to take the ball earlier. And so rather than making your split step and waiting for the ball to meet you, make your split step and move on to the ball. Now, looking at our fourth player, Don, He actually does the opposite. He makes his split step ever so slightly too early. He's already landed by the time his opponent makes contact with the ball. And believe it or not, split stepping too early also makes you get to the ball too late. I know that sounds strange, but the reason being is if you make your split step before your opponent contacts the ball, your heels are now planted to the ground, making it much more difficult to push off to that return. Now, I love that Michael and Don are both making the split step, as lots of players don't even do that. But just by tweaking the timing of your split step, you'll have a lot more time on the ball and a lot more opportunities to attack. And one of my favorite ways to cheat the split step is to make multiple. While you're waiting for the ball, if you can jump on the spot multiple times, at least one of those jumps will be at the perfect moment. And as soon as you know where that ball's going, you can pounce on it. Yes, this does make it more difficult to make your step in the Y-shaped pattern that I mentioned in tip number 1. But if you feel that your split step timing is off, like Michael's and Don's, you can always start in the middle of that Y shape here and just make the move forwards after contact. Now, tip number 3 is going to be demonstrated again by Michael and Don. And this one is more tactical, as we're going to be talking about your intention when returning serves. Now, what I noticed when watching both of these players play their matches is more often than not, when they aimed their shot in the middle of the court and deep, they actually won the point off that very shot, which may be surprising. Now, a couple of reasons why aiming deep middle is a good tactic. Number 1, clearly you're less likely to miss when you're aiming to the middle of the court as opposed to the corners. But more importantly, you're giving your opponent less angles and less options to attack. If your return goes down the line into this corner of the court, your opponent has a huge space to hit a cross-court winner. If you hit a cross-court angle to your opponent, again, they've got an easy down the line pass, or if you make a recovery, they can hit a sharp angle cross-court. But by playing the safest type of return into the deep middle part of the court, you can see there, your opponent has less angles to play with. You'll also have time to get yourself into a better position to be on top of the next shot. You'll notice a couple of times here where Don hit the corners of the court, he actually opened up an opportunity for his opponent to pass him. Whereas when the returns went down the center of the court, it was much tougher for them to make him run. And so my tip for you is to have a clear intention when you're stepping up for your return of serve. Now, when I say to have an intention, I'm not talking specifically about hitting to your opponent's forehand, their backhand, a short angle, a slice, as you don't know what type of serve is going to come towards you. But to have a basic intention of attacking the return or neutralizing the return. If you know that your opponent has a big first serve, then your intention should be to neutralize. And to neutralize, you're just going to aim safe down the middle of the court, but as deep as you can get it. Now, by having this intention to neutralize on the return of serve means that you don't need to take a big swing at the ball. Having a more compact swing, directing your strings to the center of the court is going to give you a good margin for error. But if you know that your opponent has a weak serve or a weak second serve, then your intention can be to attack. Now, where you're going to attack will really depend on where your opponent puts that serve. You don't know whether you're going to be hitting a forehand or a backhand, but just by knowing that you're going to attack, you'll push your court position slightly closer and you'll be ready to make more aggressive footwork up to the ball to take it early. On these returns, yes, you can go slightly more into the corners, but try to give yourself margin for error by aiming a couple of meters inside the tram lines. Just like we said in tip number 1, by having body weight going forwards, that's going to add power, depth and accuracy to your shot without you having to take a massive swing at the ball, in turn keeping your returns under control. So a big thank you to Michael, Brennan, Don and Dee for sending in your videos, as it takes a lot of courage to put your videos out there online for the world to see. I really hope that the tips I gave you will help you in your tennis, and I look forward to seeing your progress. Also, another thanks to SwingVision for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you for watching. Let me know which shot or situation you'd like me to fix in my next Fixing My Followers video, especially if you want to be involved. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.